right, and welcome to another episode of the GSMC Wrestling Laureate podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Eric Rodriguez, here every Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. Pacific Time, 11 p.m. Eastern Time, here to talk about everything in terms of the world of professional wrestling. Obviously, go ahead and like and subscribe to the show. Sorry, subscribe. Make sure you do that. Um, we're all about wrestling, guys, here on the GSMC Sports Network. We love you guys. Absolutely Superman punch that, like a subscribe button to the show. Follow the show, follow the network here, the GSMC Sports Network. We do love a lot of peace, love, and positivity, 1,010%. But we all understand that when it comes to sports, it's all part of the game. So we accept that there's obviously a lot of feedback, sometimes not positive. So just remember that you can, if it's criticism as well, feedback is a gift. So don't be, don't be afraid, don't be shy. Don't feel like you guys are part of the show 1,010%. So tonight, guys, obviously, first and foremost, hope you guys had a safe, fun Thursday. Tomorrow is Friday, so those who do work Monday through Friday, congratulations. Those who work on the weekends, sometimes we're not that lucky. But overall, we're going to talk about some Tony Khan. Of course, we had AEW Dynamite's title Tuesday on Tuesday, so we won't have a Dynamite review tonight. Instead, we're going to have a Tony Khan considering Saturday Night Collision and Wednesday Night Dynamite brand split. TNA Impact we're going to talk about that. Also, Ring of Honor preview. We're also going to talk about, we're going to talk about, oh, why did I go like that? Okay, there we go. We're going to talk about Kurt Angle. We're going to talk about when Kurt Angle returned to WWE overall. He kind of felt like he was punished by WWE creative, most importantly, like Vince McMahon and Triple H, Paul Levesque. And after that, we're going to talk about we're going to talk about Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley has rumors confirmed that she has signed with WWE for a 5-year deal. We're going to talk about that. In our fifth and final segment, we're going to talk about AEW. Is AEW, as a whole, as a company, better than WCW? Recently, Eric Bischoff spoke on behalf of, WCW, that AEW in 1 year has made so much money, has made more money than WCW has ever dreamed of. So we're going to talk about that. But before we get into any of that, I want to remind you guys to go ahead and hit up the GSMCpodcast.net. Also hit up those super chats if you have a burning question or a hot take in terms of professional wrestling. Here at the GSMC Sports Network, we are all ears 1,010%. So do not be shy. Make sure you guys hit up that chat. Make sure, once when you guys hit it up, it's going to make sure your guys' voice is part of the mix, part of the, kind of part of the show. So don't be shy. Drop your thoughts inside that chat. And if you really, really, really want to make sure your comment, question, or concern gets addressed during the show, why not use that super chat? It's the $ below the chat box. It's that $ below, like I said, below the chat box. But just remember that every chat box is different. Hit up our chat box, and whatever you guys have to say is going to be featured on the show, guaranteed. So make sure you guys do that. It's also a great way to support the GSMC Sports Network and our channel. Your super chats, obviously, they help us keep the lights on in terms of, bring you guys even more awesome sports content with all the amazing podcasts we have here on the network. We are absolutely super grateful for each and every one of you guys who joins us here, daily on the GSMC Sports Network. Your support makes all the difference. So let's keep the conversation going, keeping the party lively, and making sure your voice is part of the mix. Send in those super chats, those super stickers, because you guys are super awesome. And together we will make sure this podcast is bigger, better, and stronger than ever. Once again, it's a super chat. If it's not your thing, go ahead and hit up the tips and donations link at the GSMCpodcast.net. Shoot me your comments, questions, and concerns. Just remember to Superman punch that, like a subscribe button to the show. Follow the show, follow the network here at the GSMC Sports Network. We do love a lot of peace, love, and positivity, 1,010%. So make sure you go ahead and do that. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about our first segment. We're going to talk about some, why is it jumbled? Okay, there we go. That's why. All right, here we go. Tony Khan is considering a brand split between AEW Dynamite and AEW Collision, which, in turn, it could work. I feel like 1,010% it could work, but overall, I feel like the reason why AEW is so popular and the reason why fans love it so much is that there's just so many stars. that could, pop up on your screen at any time. Kind of like the way I was comparing it to on the last show, in terms of WWE, if you have the WWE World Heavyweight Champion like Gunther outside addressing, wrestling fans, and then all of a sudden you see Roman Reigns come out, that would be pretty badass. I think that'd be pretty cool. But I don't know. There's just a lot to consider. What would they really use for the main title? The mid card title kind of makes sense. Maybe on Collision you have the International Championship. Maybe on Dynamite you use the TNT Championship that Jack Perry is currently holding. You have the New Japan Professional Wrestling. And that's another thing as well. Like you also, Tony Khan has done his best in acquiring new wrestling territories like Fox Sports, Mexico. Where you're going to have a lot of regional, a lot of territories under their belt. Also, you have the CMLL in Latin America. You have the New Japan Professional Wrestling. You also have, oh man, what's the other? Ring of Honor as well. So there's a lot of potential, opportunities for new stars to grow, a lot of opportunities for you to kind of handpick, hand grow, and just make sure your promotion is up to par right now. AEW so far in its existence hasn't been bad. It's been 5 great years. It's been amazing. It's been exactly what Tony Khan has, kind of set out to do. His love for wrestling. Obviously with the partnership with a lot of wrestling greats, Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, also Cody Rhodes. So they know what wrestling's all about. They know what wrestling's all about. In terms of trying to maintain maybe or try to create some a relationship between a former WWE chairman, Vince McMahon's son, Shane McMahon could also be pretty well, could be pretty damn impressive. But overall, like their brand split, I don't think it would work. I honestly would not want to see it. Like I said, you kind of have a brand split already. You have Ring of Honor to CMLL, New Japan Professional Wrestling. And, you have Rampage, Collision, and Dynamite to kind of showcase all these talents. Once again, you also have, AEW who trademarked the name Shockwave. So, there's a lot of possibilities that can kind of go down this road of a brand split. Obviously, back in WWE when it first happened, it was successful. It was hot. It was actually very, very successful. It was pretty cool. Watching every Survivor Series, seeing that traditional 5-on-5 match, or in later Survivor Series history, you would see the WWE champion taking on the World Heavyweight champion, the World Tag Team title holders taking on the WWE title holders, the SmackDown Women's Champion taking on the Raw Women's Champion. And they would keep track of who was winning, who was losing, and it was cool. You're either Team SmackDown or your Team Raw, obviously, which kind of not propagated, that's not the right word, which kind of propelled, I guess you can say. When you played on PlayStation 2, Xbox 360, Raw versus SmackDown, it was just, it was just cool. It was just pretty badass. You had to pick a show. I remember playing a character mode, create mode, where I was like, okay, which show do you want to be on? SmackDown or Raw? And I was like, you know what? Head to toe, I'm a Raw guy. Like, you know what I mean? Shawn Michaels is on Raw, Triple H, Randy Orton. Now, at the time, Randy Orton back in 2006. So, I was like all for it. I was like, dude, I'm going to be part of Evolution, baby. Evolution. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm moving on. So I think, a brand split, it could possibly work done right. Yes. Done wrong, it could be detrimental towards your wrestling promotion. So as of right now, I feel like Tony Khan shouldn't really kind of step into that category. But overall, like, who knows? Like, it could be a money idea most of the time. Kind of last minute thinking overall, kind of puts wrestling promotions to the ground, kind of like we saw WCW, and we're going to talk about that in our fifth segment. But overall, Tony Khan wanting to split up Collision, wanting to split up Dynamite, I think ultimately kind of defeats the purpose of why AEW fans love AEW. Or you know what? I misphrased that. Why wrestling fans? Why wrestling fans? Why wrestling fans love AEW is just the fact that at any moment, you can have anybody from, New Japan Professional Wrestling. You can have anybody from the CMLL, Stardom or anything like that randomly pop up on your screen and come out and challenge girls like Mariah May, or main card title holders like John Moxley, challenged by oh god, who was that guy? Was it Takeshna? Who was the guy who beat him for the IWG? Oh my God, I can't believe I don't remember. Damn it. I think it was that Forbidden Door, and I was really shocked. Damn it, I can't remember his name. But overall, like it's those shocking factors that make AEW so great. So I feel like it would ultimately hurt AEW to have a brand split. But if Tony Khan thinks it could possibly work, then hey, I trust the man. Obviously, I don't trust what him and his father are doing with the Jacksonville Jaguars. But we're not going to get into that. We're not going to get it. I'm just kidding. No, moving on. All right, so we're going to talk about next, guys. We're going to talk about some Thursday night wrestling preview. We got TNA Impact on tonight, Ring of Honor Club. So grab your favorite snack, grab your favorite ice cold beverage, and join me here in about 25 seconds.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back with the GSMC Wrestling Laureate podcast brought to you by GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Eric Rodriguez, here every Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. Pacific time, 11 p.m. Eastern time. Here to talk about some of the greatest stuff that happens in the world of professional wrestling. We talk about all the action inside and out. Backstage curtain drama. We also talk about superstar, inactive statuses, injury updates, contract negotiations, extensions, and signings. We talk about promotions from WWE to TNA, AEW to the NWA, the GCW to Stardom, to basically if it makes major news headlines in terms of the world of professional wrestling. We talk about it here on this show, 1010%. Just kind of reflect on what we talked about right quick. We had Tony Khan, in breaking news, has been thinking about possibly splitting AEW Collision and AEW Dynamite to separate brands, kind of like with Raw vs. SmackDown. My personal opinion about it was I don't think they should do it. It's not like WWE, who has Raw and SmackDown, which under one umbrella is the same thing. NXT also as well. But if you're Tony Khan and if you have the businesses like the CMLL, like New Japan Professional Wrestling, which is like Stardom. Also, you have Ring of Honor, and Ring of Honor stars come on. It's kind of crazy, but it feels like there's already kind of something implemented as well. Having a show that like Collision on Saturday nights, which honestly hasn't really gotten a lot of attention, being brutally honest. So I would, highly advise against like, all right, let's just go ahead and make this one big brand that we rely on. All Elite Wrestling as a whole, we rely on, this brand to bring in new wrestlers because essentially all the wrestlers you see on Dynamite have been featured on Collision as well. So what's the point, so to speak? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what's the point of having people, what's the point of a brand split? Because it was like, it's not going to cause, viewers to come, visit your site, visit your, television network, to visit your show. All in all, it's just one under one umbrella. And ultimately, I feel like that's AEW, Tony Khan's strong suit as opposed to its like weaknesses. So, a brand split, I feel like is, totally out of the question. So let's go ahead and talk about some Thursday night wrestling preview. We have a good one tonight, obviously. But before we get into any of that, sorry, excuse me, I want to remind you guys to go ahead and hit up that super chat. Whether if you got a burning question or a hot take, in terms of professional wrestling, or just something you've been dying to get off your chest here at the GSMC Sports Network, we are all ears. 1010%, the show is all about keeping the conversation lively and making sure your voice is part of the mix. So don't be shy, drop your thoughts inside that chat. And if you really, really, really want to make sure your comment, question, or concerns gets noticed on, on air, make sure you hit up that $sign, that chat box, whatever you put inside that will be featured and discussed on the show as if it's a segment. So that's pretty badass. Also, it's a great way to support the GSMC Sports Network. Helps us keep the lights on for all these amazing podcasters, all these amazing sports shows like the GSMC Sports Show, the Sports by GSMC, the GSMC Football Podcast, the Wrestling Laureate Podcast, which you're listening to right now. Also, the GSMC Fantasy Sports, you name it. All these podcasters are amazing at what they do. They share the same thrill, they share the same passion that a lot of you guys, you turn on ESPN, you turn on Fox Sports West, Southwest. For me, it's Southwest. Anticipating someone to kind of get you in the mood. You don't want to necessarily turn on your television or your source of sports and essentially just like, you know, having a robot talk to you. Looking up articles off Google, and reading something that's like, and then you read multiple articles that just state the same thing, the same plot, the same twists and turns, but eventually we'll leave up to that plot. Here at the GSMC Sports Network, we have fresh takes, hot takes. We have a lot of things that you guys can ponder your minds around. But most importantly, what's better than tuning into a show that, essentially you're just watching it, just accepting what is being fed to your brain. Imagine a sports show or a sports network where you could totally change the narrative. You can change the derivative of exactly what that person is going to talk about in the show. You can do it right now. You can, hit up that super chat, or once again, if the super chat is not your thing, hit up the tips and donations link at the gsmcpodcast.net. Shoot me your comments, questions, and concerns. Tell me what you like, tell me what you don't like. Here at the GSMC Sports Network, we do love a lot of peace, love, and positivity. Just remember the Superman punch, that like and subscribe button to the show. Follow the show, follow the network as always. Once again, a lot of sports network, they don't offer things like this. I've listened to a lot of podcasts off of Twitter, Instagram, where they have like, 5 speakers. And then it's like, oh, type in your question right here. It's going to be featured on the show. And it never does. It never does. 1010%. It never does. But here at the GSMC Sports Network, I guarantee every single time you drop a thought, a chat, opinion, hot take, I guarantee you that it's going to be addressed, which is super cool. Super cool, 1010%. So make sure, hit up the tips and donations or the super chat. All right, so we got my Thursday Night Wrestling preview, and I know I, kind of ranted on a little bit about that. So let's go ahead and talk about some TNA wrestling. Obviously, or the last TNA was ultimately, kind of affected by everything that was happening with the hurricane. Announcer Todd Hannafin, hosted a special where they were talking about the best bound for glory moments. So we're gonna talk about it. All right, first and foremost, Nick Nemeth has taken on all challengers since arriving to TNA and in the process captured the TNA World Championship. But at Bound for Glory, he will face his biggest test yet. Yes, it's the viral sensation, Joe Hendry. Say his name and he appears. I believe in Joe Hendry. Do you guys believe in Joe Hendry? Do you think he's going to dethrone Nick Nemeth? Nick Nemeth has been pretty great. So honestly, that's, I think it's 50-50 right now. It's not in London. And I'm just kidding. Oh, damn it. I can't get it out of my head. So now, we're going to try to get through this without singing more. Will Nick Nemeth have something to say before the monumental clash? Find out tonight, Thursday on TNA Impact. Obviously, we have a high stakes triple threat match, will take place this week on TNA Impact as Jason Hotch, Leon Slater, and Laredo Kid battle for a shot at the X Division Championship. The winner will face off against Speedball Mike Bailey with the title on the line next week, who will earn a chance to challenge for the gold. Next, we have Josh Alexander. Josh Alexander recently has been kind of flirting in and out of TNA. Should be interesting to find out who he decides to go with, but he's definitely a special superstar. TNA, you got to sign him. You got to sign him. I'm sorry. 1010%. He's, he finds his way to kind of simulate his way into any kind of wrestling situation. And when I say that, I don't need to kind of mean it. I don't mean it to kind of stay abroad, but ultimately, this guy reminds me of like a younger Kurt Angle. This guy's special. He has the mic opportunities. He also has skills to kind of, cut promos and stuff like that. Eric Young, one of the most diehard TNA wrestlers you have ever met. One of the most loyal guys. Something that I definitely love and respect about Eric Young is once when TNA Impact, once when you lost Lashley, once when you lost AJ Styles, once when you lost the whole aces and eights, kind of Kurt Angle, he stayed. He stayed 1,010% after leaving WWE, and without a doubt, Eric Young has my respect. But at the same time, Josh Alexander, he's kind of I feel like TNA Creative is kind of flirting with a lot of these storylines and it's like, look, let's try to find a storyline that works for Josh. Let's do it. Like, why not? Because he's an amazing wrestler. Anniversary, obviously, plans changed mid-match, causing Nick Nemeth to win the championship, which wasn't his fault. Wasn't his 10%. But Josh Alexander is something special. He's a one of a kind generational talent in terms of professional wrestling. Usually you don't get a lot of chances at that. You kind of have to pay extra. You kind of have to pay somebody. Like, look at what happened with AEW, who wanted to sprout out, who wanted to amplify their women's division. Hey, let's overpay for this Mercedes Moné girl that thinks that she's all that, who thinks that, the world around her should cater to her, who demands her own dressing room, who demands her posse to be live at every event. I'm just kidding, getting too overworked. But overall, Josh Alexander, despite everything that, all the bull spit that he's taken from staying in TNA, and right now he's kind of looking for, he wants a little love. So it's time to give him a little love. And 1,010%, if they lose Josh Alexander, somebody else will pick him up, which is very bad, which would be very bad for TNA. But that's just, that's just my opinion. Since losing the TNA World Tag Team titles to the system, ABC has been fighting to reclaim their spot at the top. But this Thursday, they will face the legendary Matt and Jeff Hardy, who are making waves in their return to TNA and have their eyes set on the TNA World Tag Team titles. Which team will rise to the occasion to kind of be bigger, better, and stronger than ever? Obviously, I gotta love the Hardys. I know they want to finish their tenure, their career inside WWE. For me, it's kind of a huge red flag because what you're doing on TNA right now is you're doing so damn well. Jeff has had so many chances on WWE. Matt Hardy came back as the whole delete the broken Matt Hardy, and it worked. He was teammates with Bray Wyatt. They won the tag team titles. But it's to the point where I think WWE is over the Hardys. And you got to respect that. And if the Hardys, they want to retire in WWE, you shouldn't really ask for a title shot, like, at all, or like ever, or like ever. I'm just kidding. No, but overall, like, I don't know. Your time has passed. Time has passed. It's like, seeing Gunther kind of feud with Gunther, maybe perhaps having Gunther fight, fighting Goldberg, which would be terrible, which would be dog crap. I feel like it'd be awful. But I don't know. It should be, should be interesting. Should be interesting. All right, we got Wendy Chu teaming up with Rosemary and Tasha Steelz taking on Masha Slamovich, Sol Ruka from NXT, also Jordan Grace. I love this champion. I love this match. I definitely do love this match. I love Sol Ruka. She's definitely one of my most favorite NXT Women's Division competitors. I ultimately felt like she should have won that NXT World Women's North American Championship, but obviously, you can't always get what you want. She's been flirting with, injuries, back and forth within the last year and a half to 2 years. She's had one major injury. She's had one minor injury, which kind of kept out of action for a couple of weeks until she came back. But, Sol Ruka is definitely one of the future women's wrestlers of WWE. So it'd be kind of interesting to find out how she, takes on a lot of this, TNA talent. I want to see her shine. I definitely I feel like she has the capability to shine. She's gonna bet. You know what? I'm gonna bet the house. I'm gonna bet the house that out of all these 6 amazing women, not taking anything away from them, even Alicia Edwards on the sideline, not taking anything away from her. I feel like Sol Ruka is going to be probably the most impressive. But that's just me. That's just me. All right. Lastly, we're going to see Mike Santana is going to speak tonight. Should be fine. Should be crazy to find out what he has in store for TNA. Nothing but good things. Mike Santana is a good talent. Next on Ring of Honor, again, they're going to rapidly finish this up. We're running out of time, as always. It seems like on this podcast, we have Lance Archer in action. Recently, you saw Lance Archer become part of the Don Callis family. Billy Starks is in action. Billy Starks is, hopefully will fulfill that dream of dethroning the Ring of Honor world, the longest reigning champion, not just women's champion, the longest reigning champion in the business's history, the promotion's history, Athena. I want to see this. I want to see this get personal. I want to see Billy Starks come out of this the victor because I feel like ultimately she deserves it. Athena. They've been looking for a worthy competitor. Obviously, Red Velvet, Queen Aminata couldn't really get the job done. So I feel like it'd be best bet for Billy Starks to kind of proceed her damn it, what's that word? Proceed. Oh my God, I can't believe I can't think of it right now. Kind of like when a prince overcomes a king, or like someone of lower level, overcomes a king. Oh my God, when I think of it, I'm gonna tell you guys. But we have a Ring of Honor. We have a Women's World Television Championship match. Red Velvet going up against Diamante. Ring of Honor World Championship Proving Ground match between Mark Briscoe and Josh Woods. And we also have a Shane Taylor's Promotions against the up and coming, well, not the up and coming, but the very, consistent, yet badass, yet successful, the Infantry. So, tonight on Thursday Night Wrestling should be pretty badass. Make sure you guys tune into those shows. Well, guys, do not go anywhere. Our next segment, we're going to talk about Kurt Angle when he came back after everything that happened with his first run with WWE and, his run with TNA. When he came back the second time as the Raw general manager, a lot of people kind of speculate that he kind of got effed over. You know what I mean? Like he was being punished by Vince McMahon. And we're going to talk about that when we come back. So, hey, do not go anywhere.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Wrestling Laureate podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Eric Rodriguez, here every Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. Pacific time, 11 p.m. Eastern time. Here to talk about everything in terms of the world of professional wrestling, all the action inside and out, all the backstage curtain drama. We also talk about superstar injury updates, also inactive statuses. We talk about, contracts, excuse me. I just ate. Negotiations, extensions, also, new superstar signings that, obviously are signed, behind the curtain. But here at the GSMC Sports Network, you can find out how those contracts are exactly, the way it is. So make sure you tune into the show. All right, just kind of reflect on what we talked about right quick. We had we talked about AEW possibly having a brand split between Saturday Night Collision and Wednesday Night Dynamite. And our second segment, we talked about my Thursday Night Wrestling preview, Ring of Honor and TNA. So now, without further ado, we're going to talk about some Kurt Angle being punished by Vince McMahon. And what's funny about this is that it's not really a surprise, right? It's not really necessarily like you're surprised that once when Vince McMahon acquires something that was foreign, well, that was once familiar to WWF/WWE, but then became foreign. He made a name for himself, and he also he made a name for TNA. Like there was a point where TNA was drawing so many viewers. They really were. And before this day and age of digital era, without with streaming services, online YouTube showings, back then it was hard. Back then, for a wrestling promotion to be very, very successful, it was tough. It was hard. No, obviously that's why Dixie Carter, they partnered up with Panda Energy. Panda Energy, obviously her father's business, but once when she dipped, obviously that's where the money went as well. After that, it kind of went down under. You had Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff, who drove WCW to the ground. Ultimately, did the same for TNA Impact. But Kurt Angle, when he made his way back to WWE, I was happy, but once again, I was a little I, w- I, you know, not troubled. That's not the right word. Worried, maybe, was a little, I guess worried would be the right question because I'm like, okay, you're gonna come back to WWE and guess what? They're gonna bury you, and that's exactly what Vince McMahon did. He gave him a job as the general manager of WWE Raw. He went out there. He was doing great. Went out there. Everybody loved him. Everybody loved the "You suck." You suck. You suck. You suck. Dun-na, dun-na. You suck. And like it was like a nostalgic feeling that a lot of people like to hear. But then, as Raw general manager, being controlled by Stephanie McMahon, he was quote unquote screwing up. He was effing up. So then they put him in a match where you have him team up with the Shield. Obviously, Roman Reigns couldn't really partake in that match due to everything that happened. He was teaming up with the Shield where he was a complete dork. He was so silly that from the naked eye, from a wrestling fan's perspective, you're like, dude, that's so freaking cool, dude. Kurt Angle for the Shield. But backstage, Pat Patterson, a lot of WWE creative probably laughed at him. Probably were like, dude, like this guy's a joke. Like, so we're gonna make him into a joke. Like, then you had the general manager, and he couldn't do his job right. According to kayfabe, couldn't do his job right. Stephanie had to step in. Triple H came back during the 5-on-5 Survivor Series match. You saw Triple H pedigree him, and it was just like I don't know, it was ridiculous. It was ridiculous, and it sucked. But obviously, kind of reading this post now that Kurt Angle finally comes out and he's like, "Hey, honestly, I feel like after everything that's happened, when I came back from TNA, I kind of felt like I was done dirty." And by all means, I feel like that was 1,010% correct. Just watching it, it was sad. Sometimes it was hard to see. Kurt Angle was often, pushed around a lot. He was often talked down to. He was given a storyline where Jason Jordan was his illegitimate child. That's Vince McMahon stuff, dude. That's not Kurt Angle stuff. If you want to have Vince McMahon have an illegitimate son with, some woman that, don't want to get too exclusive into this, but, that's Vince McMahon storylines. Not Kurt Angle, not the Olympic gold medalist. And Kurt Angle was kind of forced to kind of like put on a fake smile because he's like, you know what? Let's do it. Like, let's just do it. Like, obviously, if you're a professional wrestler who thinks the injury because of his back, his neck, his shoulder, also his, I think he had some internal organs that, don't quote me on this, but I think I read a report that, some internal organs of his was kind of failing as well. So he's like, you know what? I'm leaving professional wrestling. I'm going to need something stable. I'm going to go back to WWE and go back to my home. I want to challenge John Cena. I want to fight some old guys. But obviously, the match between John Cena and Kurt Angle was shot down because of Vince McMahon. So then Kurt Angle was ultimately he was made a mockery of when he came back from TNA. And by all means, like, look at what happened with Bobby Lashley when he came back, huh? Like, come on. Like, let's look at the Evans here. Bobby Roode, Austin Aries, Rhino when he came back for a little bit, when he was doing the thing with him and Heath Slater as I got kids. Look at what happened with AJ Styles. Before AJ Styles was, signed to WWE, Vince McMahon looked at the person that was like, hey, the scout of wrestling. They're like, hey, look at what this guy AJ Styles is doing right now on Impact Wrestling. He's killing it. He's making us seem, kind of seem second tier. And Vince McMahon was like, who the hell is AJ Styles? Why should I care? And that kind of neglect, that kind of ignorance, and and a manager or a chairman or somebody who's in charge of a wrestling promotion is not good. But once when I was speaking out, once when I was speaking of again, how could you expect anything different once when Vince McMahon did what he did to WCW talents? It took a while for Booker T to kind of come up to, be successful. Booker T, honestly, probably out of all the wrestlers that left WCW, has my most utterly appreciative, utmost respect. He endured all the bull spit, all of it. All the talk downs, that promo with Triple H was like, hey, who are you? Fighting in a shopping mall with Stone Cold Steve Austin, losing to The Rock, like the WCW World Heavyweight Championship, which was very prestigious, which mattered to Booker. They're like, hey, you're gonna lose, dude. Sorry. So Booker T obviously was, very special. But like, look at some of the WCW stars who was like, you know what? Like, this isn't worth it. You know what I mean? Like Kevin Nash, once when WCW was gone, he was like, all right, that's cool. I'm out of here. Lex Luger, guess what, dude? Hey, I'm out of here. Hollywood Hulk Hogan, bye. Sting out of all people even said it in an interview after he made his debut in WWE, was like, you know what? I did not join WWF/WWE was because he saw how everybody was just being treated like crap. Chuck Palumbo was forced into a tag team with Billy Gunn where he was, portrayed as a metrosexual, which isn't bad. Like, I'm not trying to paint that as a negative narrative at all. You know what I mean? DDP came back. DDP, Diamond Dallas Page, bang, the Diamond Cutter, one of the most prestigious wrestlers in WCW, former WCW World Heavyweight Champion, is going to be, guess what? A stalker to The Undertaker's wife. Is that the best storyline you have for him? That's crazy. That's crazy. And once again, that just shows how, Vince McMahon treated a lot of the new talent that came from WCW. But once when Kurt Angle left the WWE, he did not leave under good circumstances. And when he came back after, making it big in TNA, Vince McMahon punished them with this whole Jason Jordan illegitimate son narrative. You had him being the Raw general manager and purposely kind of set up to fail. His daughter Stephanie had to come in and take control. And once when Kurt Angle still wasn't listening, you had her husband, Triple H Paul Levesque, come in at Survivor Series and pedigree his ass. And it was just, it was embarrassing. It was embarrassing for Kurt Angle. And for Kurt Angle to come out, recently in an interview saying that, you know what, when I came back to WWE, I felt like that was boned, dude. Like, I got boned. And that's exactly what happened. 1010%. And as a wrestling fan, when he came out and said that, I was like, poor Kurt. To be honest, dude, I saw it. Dude. You didn't have to tell me. I'm with you, man. Olympic gold medalist, man. I do this podcast every night with a broken freaking neck. I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. That was true. I probably wouldn't be doing the podcast. All right, so moving on, we are the fourth segment. We're going to talk about Rhea Ripley reportedly about to sign a new contract with WWE, 5 years. And we're going to dig into some of the details. Also, we're going to talk about some future storylines, bookings, and what this means for the women's division on Raw or maybe even SmackDown. Hell, maybe even NXT. So, hey, do not go anywhere.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back with the GSMC Wrestling Laureate podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Eric Rodriguez, here every Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. Pacific Time, 11 p.m. Eastern Time here on the GSMC Sports Network. Your favorite wrestling fan talks about all the action inside and outside of the ring. We talk about backstage curtain drama. We also talk about, superstar news, inactive statuses, injury updates, contract negotiations, extensions, and new signings from promotions from WWE to TNA to AEW to Ring of Honor, CMLL to New Japan Professional Wrestling to the GCW to also the CMLL. If it makes major news headlines in the world of professional wrestling, we talk about it here on this show. So just kind of reflect on what we talked about right quick. We had we talked about Tony Khan potentially, thinking like a brand split like WWE, Raw and SmackDown. But instead of that, it'd be Collision against Dynamite, which, like I said, if it's done correctly, could be right. But if it's done bad, could be very, very bad for the promotion, who's starting to get more viewers. Excuse me. But overall, you kind of have that happening right now. Sorry. You have a lot of superstars on Collision that fight Solamente on Collision, and a lot of fans on Rampage who fight on Rampage. And, obviously, you have people like MJF, Will Ospreay who fight on Dynamite more exclusively, not necessarily like, you know, kind of, you know, kind of succumb to that. But ultimately, like, I feel like it would kind of shoot AEW in the leg more than kind of, promote their, the better the promotion, because I feel like the reason why AEW is so damn prestigious, the reason why people watch it instead of WWE and WWE, like a lot of people, they kind of have this territorial, either or. You're either with AEW or you're with WWE, and that's bullshit. That's not true. You can't, that you could become. I'm a wrestling fan. I'm a wrestling fan. I was watching TNA back in 2006. I love the fact that they're doing collaborations with the NXT. I used to watch WCW. I used to watch WWF/WWE, Raw, SmackDown. Used to watch all these things. Now, I've come to grow a lot of, kind of grow some love for AEW. Love all the wrestling. Tony Khan's promotion is kicking ass. I love it, and I feel like it's gonna be great. All right, guys, without further ado, let's go ahead and talk briefly on this subject that Rhea Ripley is about to sign a contract. New contract with WWE, guarantees her 5 years. It's the correct move. It's kind of been the correct move ever since you kind of had an aging Asuka. You had an aging Bailey, an aging Charlotte Flair, tore her MCL, ACL. You had also Natalia, who's not really with it. Not really in the main event kind of picture. Becky Lynch, with the whole maternity leave, and she was injured as well. She had her fair share of injuries. But Rhea Ripley right now is the kind of the new generation China mixed with the new generation's Lita, mixed with the new generation's like Trish Stratus. She has a big, amazing things ahead of her career if she stays healthy. If she stays healthy, 1,010%. Obviously, she does have, I think it's her right arm. I think it is her right elbow that's been injured multiple times. But Rhea Ripley special. If I was WWE, I would have signed her too. Like, why not? She's definitely one of the best wrestlers. The women's wrestlers, like, shit. I mean, crap. Sorry. Bullspit. Oh, God. You kind of have her on the men's and the women's division as one of the main stars that you kind of tune into every week. People love seeing themselves from Rhea Ripley. She could be a WWE Women's Tag Team Champion, Women's World Champion, a Women's WWE Women's Champion, and she can just kill it, kill all the bookings that she's in right now. This whole breakup between her and Judgment Day is a little far fetched. In my opinion, I kind of want to see her go as far away from this whole Judgment Day as humanly possible. You know what I mean? She could feud with Liv, but after losing twice, because obviously you had Raquel Rodriguez, obviously you saw her lose. Thanks to Dominic Mysterio at SummerSlam. I want to see Rhea Ripley come to SmackDown. I want to see her feud with Nia Jax. I do. I feel like that would be great. Kind of switching some people. Maybe Tiffany Stratton cashes in at Crown Jewel. You're going to have the two champions there, Liv Morgan and Nia Jax, right there, blam, in front of your face. Tiffany Stratton cashes in her money in the bank on Liv Morgan. Liv Morgan, obviously can't. It's not like a rematch clause kind of thing. But then she joins, Raquel Rodriguez, and then they start going after the WWE Women's Tag Team titles. Once again, I'm not crapping on Liv Morgan. It's not like I hate Liv Morgan. I respect her. I love her as a chaser, not really as a champion. But, as the face of Monday Night Raw heading into Netflix, I don't see it happening. I'm sorry, but it's hard for me to believe. It's hard for me to believe. With her with Raquel Rodriguez is a whole different story. But can Raquel Rodriguez kind of help Liv Morgan win every single WWE World Women's Championship match? maybe, perhaps it could happen. Obviously, you saw that with Triple H and not Triple H, with Shawn Michaels and Diesel. Like that's it's happened before. Obviously, men's wrestling, but hey, why not do it for women's wrestling as well? But overall, I just want signing this contract is a big thing for Rhea Ripley for one of two things. Number one, WWE is locking her up because they know she's going to be a star, and number two, WWE is kind of gearing up toward a new generation of women's superstars that are going to kind of mimic the same mentality, physicality that what Rhea Ripley, kind of offers. You know what I mean? I feel like WWE is going to kind of take a break from hiring all the Barbie dolls. You know what I mean? Like all the models. You're like, you know what? Go in and join the WWE. Join the WWE ring, dude. Guess what? We'll train you up. We'll train you up to be awesome. But now with this women's division on Monday Night Raw, and it has to get better, a lot better. Monday Night Raw's women's division has been lacking, has been one of the crappiest division inside of women's wrestling. Going under obviously the best NXT, TNA, SmackDown. I even think AEW has a way better women's division than Monday Night Raw, and I'm not trying to crap on AEW at all, not at all. But there could be done a lot better. A lot of talents. Obviously, we were talking last podcast about WWE introducing a women's mid-card title, like the WWE Women's Intercontinental Championship and the WWE Women's United States Championship. That could help a lot, a hell of a lot. But as of right now, it's just Monday Night Raw. It's kind of lacking, And if you have this main, conglomerate that Netflix is. Over 260 million subscribers who blow the water out of Hulu, who blow the water out of Disney Plus, Prime Video, you name it, Paramount Plus, CBS, whatever, they kill it. They kill it, and they're going to want a wrestling promotion that's going to promote their brand first and foremost, and that's going to draw viewers. If you're not a wrestling fan, Netflix, they hope that when somebody stumbles upon WWE, they tune in, put on the channel, and then they start streaming. They start not streaming, but then they start like kind of start skipping through a lot of what's new on Netflix. Because the moment you put on Netflix, it's the top 10. What's been visited, the top 10. And then you see the movies, you see this TV series, the documentaries, and Raw's going to be right there. So obviously there has to be a lot of women's wrestlers, especially heading toward Monday Night Raw. I feel like that's the reason why they locked Rhea Ripley up for 5 years. So it's not really a surprise. She's definitely the future of WWE. And honestly, giving a round of some pretty awesome women's wrestling. Obviously, love Rhea Ripley. She deserves it. And 1,010%. Congratulations, girl. You did it. All right, last. To finish this up right quick because we are running short out of time. We have AEW's is more profitable than WCW's 13 years, in existence. Obviously, we're going to talk about some of Eric Bischoff's, some of his comments, some of, a lot of other, Reddit comments as well. So grab your favorite snack, grab your favorite ice cold beverage, and we're going to, join me back here in about 25 seconds. All right, thank you, and welcome back to the GSMC Wrestling Laureate podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Eric Rodriguez, here every Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. Pacific Time, 11 p.m. Eastern Time, here to talk about everything about wrestling on the GSMC Sports Network. Just kind of reflect on what we talked about right quick. We had our Tony Khan thinking about splitting Collision and NXT Dynamite. No, AEW Dynamite, excuse me, into two separate brands, kind of like with Raw and SmackDown. We also talked about my Thursday night wrestling preview, Ring of Honor and TNA. We also talked about Kurt Angle kind of getting screwed over when he came back to WWE. In a recent interview, he felt the same way that a lot of us wrestling fans kind of saw when he came back as the Raw general manager. Rhea Ripley talking about her 5-year contract negotiation, speculated, although I feel like it's going to be correct because she's the future of Raw women's wrestling. And now we're going to talk about AEW. Is it better than WCW? Is it better than WCW? AEW has been more profitable in 1 year than WCW's 13 years. Like it's starting off from WCW, like the Jim Crockett Promotions, obviously stemming off of the National Wrestling Alliance. You've had them, they kind of made a big deal. They made, some partnerships. They came out as the World Championship Wrestling, late 80s, early 90s, the 13 years of existence. You know what I mean? Like it's, at a time when WWF/WWE seemed like they were untouchable, during the entertainment conglomerate that was WWF. Obviously, you had WrestleMania 1 with a lot of, stars like, Cyndi Lauper, Mr. T, Muhammad Ali. There had to be a lot of strings pulled to kind of state your case as a wrestling promotion back in the 80s. But something that WCW was, it was something fresh, it was something new, it was something innovative, something cutting edge that a lot of wrestling fans yearned for while watching WWF. And then once when Hollywood Hulk Hogan left, once when Razor Ramon, Kevin Nash left as well, stars like, Jeff Jarrett left as well, Bret Hart, WWF was kind of left for dead. WWE, the only person you really had to kind of carry on the load was, Shawn Michaels, the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, Triple H. Obviously, back then he was like a mid-card. Paul Levesque guy was like saying that somebody like Sami Zayn was going to, was going to run the company one day. Like it just seems so far-fetched, and then you had a WWF, Vince McMahon, they knew that they were going to have to start, building up a lot of these young superstars, like Rocky Maivia, like, making them part of the Nation of Domination, turning heel. You had Shawn Michaels breaking up with Marty Jannetty, the Rockers, becoming his own single superstar. Then you had, Paul Levesque becoming a huge major single superstar alongside with China. You started seeing people like The Undertaker come out, and then later on you saw Stone Cold Steve Austin. And, WCW, out of retrospect, I got to give them my 1010%, support because I love WCW. I was, not like I was there, but I was watching that night on TNT when you saw, Shane McMahon come out and announce, and then Vince McMahon came out announcing that he owns WCW now. For some strange reason, and it wasn't like I was in the locker room or inside the arena that same day, because that day you saw Booker T defeat Scott Steiner for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. I was there sitting and watching my TV. Something as simple as a 10-year-old, or I think I was 9. Simple as a 9-year-old, who hasn't really had a lot of, chances to kind of engage in a lot of empathetic, sympathetic kind of situations in my young life. But watching Vince McMahon come out there and announcing that he bought WCW, it was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking, and you could see it on the face of the fans, the wrestlers. They knew exactly what entailed of joining WWF/WW. They knew exactly what it was. It was like, all right, time to bust out the resume again. hey, guess what? You see people as, big and bad and as successful as Diamond Dallas Page, as Scott Steiner. They were like, all right, guess what? We're going to be losing matches to people like Y2J. I'm not trying to crap on Y2J, but at that time, he was kind of a mid-carder compared to the main, when WWF acquired WCW, you had a whole just plethora of main card world heavyweights come on your lap. And Vince McMahon kind of just shoved them off to the wayside. And how this affects, how this kind of how this connects to what Eric Bischoff is kind of saying. Because right, from the naked eye, from some random viewer, because I do respect Eric Bischoff, I respect Vince Russo, and obviously I do on this podcast, kind of do advocate for the idea that it was Eric Bischoff, who during his days with early WCW, he was a genius. And with Vince Russo, who helped definitely usher in this Attitude Era, I was like, dude, these guys are gonna kill it. I guess more or less I was kind of disappointed, that once when Eric Bischoff and Hollywood Hulk Hogan took over, it was just bad. They butted heads, big egos going at it with big egos. Obviously, that's what you see with WWE. That's the reason why it was going down under as well back in the, I would say probably the mid 2010s, but WCW was great. WCW served as an alternative to professional wrestling that WWE, WWF couldn't fill in that void. Couldn't really fill in that void that that Vince McMahon could have had. And the fact that AEW has been way more successful than WCW isn't an indictment on how WCW was like crappy for 13 years. No, that's not it at all. We are now in this new day and age of digital era. The digital era where you could, stream on YouTube and be successful, where you could stream on Access TV like TNA, or, you could stream on HBO Max or Netflix or all these other streaming services that you could possibly get viewers from. Back then it was like, guess what? If you're not on TV, guess what? Tough crap. Tough shiitake mushrooms, dude. You're not going to make it. So obviously WCW had to kind of hurdle over a lot more, a lot more things in their way as opposed to what WWE or AEW now has to do. So the fact that AEW is more profitable than WCW in 13 years, that's not surprising. But then again, it's not an indictment of how bad WCW is. It's not saying that AEW beats the crap out of WCW. You're like, oh, Eric Bischoff is a piece of crap. He's wrong. Eric Bischoff obviously, like, there are some times where he is a little bit protective, but dude, that was his baby. He was running the Monday Night Wars, and thanks to all the BS behind stage, it was like things kept declining, and he essentially, it sucks. It really does suck because I was a fan of Eric Bischoff. Obviously, with the same name, Eric, so us Eric's gotta stay together. I'm just kidding, no. But ultimately, like, I feel like, this statement coming out and Eric Bischoff's comments toward the whole, AEW in 1 year is more profitable than WCW's 13 years. It's you can't really compare apples to oranges. You know what I mean? Like, it's not comparable. You can't compare it at all. Like, I know a lot of you guys are like, oh, what are you talking about, Eric? That's BS, dude. A lot of people love watching AEW, even if it's on TNT, TBS, you know what I mean? I'm sorry, wrestling fans, we got to come together. Guess what? You can't compare the two. You can't. Back then at WCW, did they have all this digital media? During this digital era? Guess what? No. But do you have cell phones that you pop it up and you watch a video or a clip on YouTube or Instagram? Guess what? That goes to views as well. Just something as small as like a 5 minutes or like a 20-minute video that you randomly stream on YouTube. Guess what? It counts as a view, dude. Like, you know what I mean? And it creates this this fallacy, this facade that AEW is more richer than it actually is. But then once again, I'm not trying to crap on AEW because I feel like they've done a really, really good job as well. Only 5 years in existence, even having. I read a stat that last Tuesday, Title Tuesday, was 500,000 viewers less than NXT's, NXT show in St. Louis. A lot of people are like, "Oh, dude, AEW sucks. AEW is going down, dude." It's not. It's not. It's not. 300,000 viewers for a wrestling promotion that started 5 years ago. That's amazing. That's great. Starting where you're coming from, dude, no one's going to compete with the WWE. And that's something that wrestling fans can't seem to wrap their minds around. Is you can never, ever compete with WWF or WWE. You can't. You simply can't. And WCW tried, and they did. They overcame WWF. But nowadays, with all the streaming platforms and the internet, digital era, you can never, ever be better than WWE. That's why when some fans are, downing AEW and, Tony Khan, I do like Tony Khan. Tony Khan's a great guy. But just saying that AEW is crappy because it's not, reaching up to the value or the ratings in that age demographic of 19 to 41-year-olds, you're trash. You're a trash wrestling promotion. Dude, it's not true. It's not true. And as soon as wrestling fans can wrap their minds around it, it's not a war anymore. It's not a war anymore. Sometimes Tony Khan, yeah, he admits like, hey, dude, yeah. Sometimes I admit like, kind of, correlating what's happening with AEW and WWE to like the Monday Night Wars. But I kind of just say that to kind of stir shit up, stir stuff up. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he didn't say the words exactly, but he basically said, you know what? It's to kind of, stir the wrestling thing up. Do I ever feel like I'm better than WWE? No. Tony Khan is open to a collaboration between WWE, and the WWE is willing to be a collaboration with AEW, and that just shows how AEW and Tony Khan is just a little bit more willing to kind of nurture, kind of ultimately do what's right for the WWE, AEW, all the wrestling fans out there, basically. But if you're a WCW fan, and if you're an AEW fan, this new day and age of trying to like play territories, it's and tribes and stuff like that. It's you can't do that. You can't do that during this digital media era. Like everybody has everything. Wrestling fans are wrestling fans. You can't really go out there and be like, "Hey, dude, I'm an AEW fan." Sure, if you're like super proud and you're like, "Dude, f everything else," like you know what I mean. But although sometimes you like watch all the other promotions and you're like, "Damn, this is actually pretty good." I feel like comparing AEW to WCW has to be done, has to be put to bed. But it's just something that wrestling news media loves to do. So obviously, if it's clickbait, if it's clickbait, if it's something that obviously it's working. Since on this show that I'm talking about this and I'm talking about the clickbait, because obviously I'm the poor sucker who has been in the clickbait. So it's not like it's like, I'm better or I haven't fell for it or I'm smarter than any other wrestling fan out there. You know what I mean? So essentially, I fell for the same trap that you guys did too. You know what I mean? All right, so moving on. That was it for my show today. Hope you guys had a great time. Hope you guys had an amazing Thursday. Tomorrow is Friday, the last day before you kick off your badass weekend. Thank you so much for tuning into the GSMC Wrestling Laureate podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Remember to Superman punch that like and subscribe button to the show. Follow the show, follow the network, follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and one last thing, Instagram for more content and updates. Once again, if I have not made you a wrestling fan by now, we have a whole bunch of other podcasts. We have the GSMC College Football Podcast with my boy Tommy, the greatest college football analysis in the sports entertainment industry. Make sure you tune into his show. We also have 2 football podcasts. The NFL is heating up. We got Manny with the Chip Shot Football Podcast. We also have Kenneth with the GSMC Football Podcast. We also have the WNBA playoffs in full rise. The NBA is a mere 2 weeks away, debuting on ESPN. ESPN or TNT? I think it's TNT. Make sure you tune into Nelson's GSMC Basketball Podcast. We have All Around Sports with Jeremy with the Sports by GSMC. We also have All Around Sports with my boy TJ with GSMC Sports Podcast. And in a matter of 21 minutes, we have my boy Emran with the GSMC Soccer Podcast. And with all sports comes amazing fantasy sports, fantasy football. If you're playing fantasy football for college, if you're playing fantasy hockey with hockey coming up, fantasy basketball, is there a fantasy basketball? But something that I know for sure is a fantasy. Fantasy football. Fantasy football. I'm part of 2 leagues. Congratulations, Eric. I'm 2-3 in 1 league, so I have not killed myself yet. I'm just kidding. I want to kill myself for fantasy football. I'm just kidding. Moving on. But make sure you tune into my boy Chris Shepard's GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast. Find out all your stardoms, your sit-ems, who to sign off the waiver wire, find out who to drop, who to pick up, find out who to chance to risk it for the biscuit. So yeah, make sure you tune into Chris's podcast. It's pretty badass. It's pretty cool. Once again, thank you so much for tuning into my Thursday show. Stay beautiful, and as always, love you.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn ain't that